ရိယဓာတ်ခေါ်တဲ့သဘောသုံးမျိုးပေါ့လေပြောလာတာအဆုံးမတတ်သေးပါဘူး
Sayadaw-ji spoke about 3 kinds of virya, and this topic is not yet concluded. Arambha Dhatu, the initial or launching effort, and then the next level of effort, persistent effort to overcome difficulties, and then the third level, Nikkama Dhatu, effort which goes up stage by stage until one reaches the goal. Today, so far Sayadaw-ji has spoken only about the first 2 levels, and he will continue with speaking about the second level, Nikkama Dhatu. When we say that virya dispels the kilesas, this means that it doesn't give them a chance to arise. We can't dispel the kilesas that are happening. We can't dispel the ones that have already occurred. And we can't dispel kilesas that haven't arisen yet. But one can apply virya so that in the present they do not arise. Kilesas are worthless. There's ignorance or avidya, not knowing, and then there's not being disgusted by unwholesomeness, not being afraid of kilesas. And then there's the scattered mind, the mind that is just scattered for no reason at all. So these 4 unwholesome qualities are present every time the unwholesome mind arises. And when the situation goes further, if one encounters an enticing object, something that inspires lust, then the mind will arise together with lobha or greed. And when there's something dissatisfying, then the mind will arise together with dosa or anger. And if one just lets things go, then it can go to the extreme of taking the transgressive form of kilesas. So virya, in order not to let this situation develop, virya does not accept kilesas. It doesn't give them any place. And this is why it's said that virya dispels kilesas. Similar to preventing a disease before it happens, if we take preventative measures, then if the disease does occur, it's easier to cure it. If we only start to take some action after disease has arisen, if we don't take any preventative measures, then it's worse. It's more difficult to cure. So virya helps us to prevent and cure kilesas. And the Buddha spoke about 3 levels of virya that are to be used one after another. And he also spoke about how to increase one's virya. If one doesn't know the benefits of making effort, then one will never try. So behavior that is disgusting, the state of being, disgusting behavior is called kosajja. This is laziness. So instead of doing something beneficial, doing something that will bring about good, but just being lazy. Such a person will be called by others lazy bum or something like that. People will look at that person and criticize that person, calling them lazy or other things like that. So, if one makes no effort at all to do something beneficial for oneself, and if one doesn't make any effort so as not to be blamed and criticized by those around one, then one will never reach a better state in life. One will only go down because of laziness, lack of effort. There will be greed when the cause for greed is there to arise. So one's mind will turn to greed and anger, dosa, and ignorance, not knowing, moha, and mana, pride. So all of these will be part of one's life if one doesn't make effort. And this is a true loss in one's life. This means one's life has gone to waste. And if the kilesas lead to transgression, then the loss will be even greater. But now, the yogis who are here, when they sit down, every time the abdomen moves with the in-breath and rises, every time the abdomen falls, they apply effort to observe this. Each time there's a rising, each time there's a falling. And in this way, no laziness can enter their minds. So if yogis think about this, then consider this, the nature of effort is apparent. The Buddha said that laziness is a terrible enemy for those who are making effort. First with sila, to keep the physical and verbal behavior clean, and second of all, to develop a clean, wholesome mind. Laziness is a very strong enemy to be feared. It attacks us first. And it is very close to us, and it blocks clean living. It prevents a clean way of life. So it presents a very significant, terrible danger. It's quite bad. And so as to overcome this danger, one has to use lots of energy. And one has to, there has to be level after level of courageous effort. With the practice of samatha, to make the mind stable on a single object, the practicing to see mental and physical phenomena, nama and rupa, to see how they are related by cause and effect, and so on. It's said one can't be lazy, one must be attandito. This means to not be lazy. Tandi means the retracted mind, the mind that withdraws, the mind that can't sit for an hour without fidgeting. And when one can't sit for an hour, then one doesn't see any benefit. One doesn't see the results of one's practice, and so one gets depressed. And then the mind has no energy at all. This is when Danti has come in. And this is the worst enemy that we face, this is the nearest to us and it gives us the most trouble. So if this quality of danti enters the mind, then one doesn't want to do what's necessary to behave like a true human being. One doesn't care about having a human mentality, a humane attitude. One doesn't want to develop any knowledge and become a better than average special human being. This quality makes the mind withdraw. And this shouldn't happen. So one should be attendito. That means that one should be a person that doesn't have this type of laziness. Except for the time when we're asleep, yogis need to apply effort to have sati all their waking hours. When one sits, one puts one's mind on the abdomen, and every time the abdomen rises, every time the abdomen falls, one in order to know the nature of the rising stiffness and tension and so on, in order to know the nature of the falling relaxation and so on, to know the true nature time after time, one must have ardent effort. One can't be cool or cold about it. One can't be slack. The effort has to be intense. If one doesn't take care and practice in this way, if one is cold or slack, lax, then laziness will take over. So one's effort must be active, because active effort won't accept this tanti, the laziness. Because of active effort, it can't come in. The laziness is not let in. So if one's effort declines, then the collected mind becomes dispersed. When the mind is not collected, then sati is not there to protect the mind, and therefore kilesas come in. The collectedness of mind decreases, goes away, because there is no samadhi. So when that happens, the mind just goes helter-skelter. And for people who are in that situation, who have no way to control the mind, whatever object their mind encounters, kilesas are sure to arise. What this is like, it's like when one has a plot of land, a piece of land, but doesn't put that piece of land to use. Then what happens is that weeds sprout up, weeds that don't bring any benefit at all. And the weeds multiply and become a big tangle. And because one doesn't put one's plot of land to use, it goes to waste. One should consider one's life to be one's own plot of land, one's own piece of land. If one doesn't put this piece of land to use, then what will happen is weeds will sprout. The weed of lobha, greed. The weed of anger, dosa. Moha, not knowing. Mana, thinking highly of oneself. And so on. The weeds will multiply. And one's life, one's plot of land, will become a jungle. And this is called Kilesa Bhumi. That means the place where kilesas arise. Most people in the world, for most people in the world, their own being is this type of place, the place where kilesas arise, Kilesa Bhumi. Because they do not know how to put their life to use, it just goes to waste. So one who knows how to use one's piece of land will at least do something like plant flowers, because those are nice to look at, and when we see them we feel good. And then, well, plant fruit trees or other fruit-bearing plants, and then when these bear fruit we can use the fruit, we can eat it. And we can plant big trees that give shade, and then we can get the benefit. So when we put our own piece of land to use, it becomes very beneficial. And so too, our own mind and matter, our own nama and rupa, is something that we need to put to use. First of all, we need to eliminate pests that attack the trees. So we need to plant, first of all, the tree of sila. This sila that we keep, when we see it, when we reflect on it, it makes our mind clear and clean. It makes us feel good. And the next type of tree to plant is done by making effort to make the mind clean moment by moment, with effort, virya, with sati, which follows this, and with samadhi. So when these three factors are developed, the mind becomes clean moment by moment. And this is progress. And to see this, too, makes our mind feel happy. And then we need to develop knowledge stage by stage. This is the third thing that we do with our plot of land. When we develop knowledge, bit by bit, we eliminate wrong views. And so, just as when we plant flowers and come to see them, we plant fruit trees, we plant shade trees, and we gain the benefits from these. We can think of how we'll feel when we get those benefits. So, this is similar to having planted plants that can bear flowers, bear fruit, and provide shade. So too, this work of keeping sila, making the mind clean, developing knowledge, is like putting our plot of land to use. So our being, just like land is just a piece of land. And if we don't use it, then weeds will grow, and it won't be something we want to look at. But when we use a piece of land and plant beneficial things, then it will be very good for us. So too our being is like this. We can use it or not. And if we use it, then it becomes panya bhumi, the place where panya, wisdom, arises one by one. And this is very good to see. One who is lazy does not know how to use their own plot of land, or knowing a way to use it doesn't have any faith that doing this is good, doesn't have any desire to apply this method of putting one's plot of land into use. So if that is the case, then one's plot of land will just become a tangle of weeds that are impossible to clean up. And just like weeds, a tangle of weeds can hide harmful pests, things that cause harm to us, so too the tangle of kilesas can harbor things that will harm us too. So, on the other hand, one who knows how to put one's plot of land, that is one's life, to use, can get a lot of benefit from doing so. Because one knows how to use one's own plot of land, one gets shade, one gets flowers, and one gets fruit from the plants one has planted. And these make us feel good when we see this situation. And this is similar to putting our nama and rupa, our mind and body, to use the way we are now. With sila, we create clean physical and verbal behavior. This is like cleaning up the biggest weeds. And then with virya, sati, and samadhi, each time these occur, moment by moment, kilesas don't arise. And further, when one reaches the stage of, when one develops knowledge bit by bit, and especially when one reaches the stage of udyabhya jnana, one gains a happiness that is far better than any type of human or celestial happiness. It's a happiness that never gets old, never gets boring. So, just as when we plant trees and useful plants on our land and get shade, fruit, and flowers, so too when we practice. And when one's mind, when we come to see how when the clean mind arises moment by moment, again and again, and one comes to see how fleeting, how quickly things arise and then pass away, one experiences a happiness that is unlike anything that can be experienced in the world. There's no such happiness that can be gained through any type of sense pleasure. Sense things experienced through the senses become boring. They become old. One gets tired of them. But the happiness that one gains through the practice is not like that. It never gets old or boring or tiring. So when one gains this type of happiness through the practice, one feels very inspired, and one continues to go forward in the practice because one is confident of the happiness that comes from the practice. Starting with the rising and the falling. Whenever an object arises, one has to apply effort so that the mind reaches the object. One has to apply effort so that the mind will stick to the object. If one applies effort every time the object arises, then the mind will stay with the object, will stick with it. But from time to time, our effort is too much, our effort is excessive, and then we miss the object. And from time to time, our virya is too low, so our mind doesn't reach the object. Therefore, we need to have jhana. We need to have the quality of aiming that is called vitakka, so that we are able to reach the target as well as hit it directly. So in order to reach the target, for example, as when we are throwing darts, when we want the dart to reach the target, we have to apply strength. And we also have to be accurate. Our aim has to be accurate. And if we can do that, we'll get somewhere. We'll hit the target somewhere. And at least we'll get some points. And as we keep on practicing and get closer and closer to the target, we get closer and closer to the bullseye, we get more and more points. And when we hit the bullseye, then we get the most points we can get, full marks. So one who practices darts and wants to try to get the bullseye, they have to practice until they become skilled. But through practice, one gets to the point where one can hit the bullseye without making any special effort. One can just look at it and throw and hit the bullseye because one has developed the skill. And the practicing yogis are like this. Later on in the practice, when one becomes skilled, one doesn't need specifically to aim or to make effort. But at first, one has to make effort to observe the object, and one has to have the aiming factor, the jhanic factor of vitakka, so that the mind is accurate. When there's effort and aiming, one will contact the object. One will meet up exactly with the object. And when the mind contacts stiffness, one will know the stiffness. So sometimes the mind will fall on stiffness. Sometimes it will encounter tension. Sometimes it will encounter relaxation. When we contact these types of qualities, this is like getting a hit. This is when the quality of vichara has been developed, the ability to stay in contact with the object. So when this quality arises of vichara, in addition to effort and aiming, then one will be definite about the object one is observing. One will know exactly what it is. So in order for this quality of vichara to arise, one has to have effort to observe the object when it arises, and one has to aim every time. So this is our daily work. This is what we have to do. And if we apply aiming and effort moment by moment, eventually samadhi will arise, sati will become steadfast, samadhi will arise, and knowledge will develop. And these will happen automatically. Today, a yogi said that in the past days, because of painful feelings, the yogi was scared and thought about leaving the center, thought about leaving the retreat. But now, because the yogi's noting had become continuous, the yogi was able to observe the Vedana as it is simply as Vedana. And the yogi saw how the Vedana arose and passed away. And after that, there wasn't any more pain. Then joy arose, piti, sukha. So this is what happens when one practices. And tomorrow, Sayadaw would like to speak about how, with the application of effort and aiming, how sati, samadhi, and panya arise. Today the time is up, so that's all for today. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.